Let a wave of repugnance for the enemy wash over you. Let hatred fill you. Hate is good, for our goal is a human galaxy. We are called by the Emperor with a sacred duty to conquer it in his name. The Angels of Death confront untold horrors which seek to snuff out the light of humanity. Terrors both supernatural and mundane in nature, salivating at the prospect of ripping the still-beating heart from the Imperium's breast. Stoic warriors aplenty are required to cast back the darkness. Yet even the transhuman soldiers of the Adeptus Astartes, clad as they are in protective ceramite, are vulnerable to moral maladies, and as such require a caste devoted to maintaining their spiritual health. For today, we shall elucidate the morose seraphs who protect their kinsmen from foes beyond the pale. The grim, black-clad ministers of the Space Marines, the Chaplains. Though the initial ranks of the Legiones Astartes required no need for defenses against the forces of chaos, signs of fractures within the legionaries' armor began to show. First to adopt such grim seraphs were the Wordbearers Legion. Their religious fervor before even their reunion with the Rainmaker, Lorgar Aurelian, evident as they burned tomes which contradicted the creed of the Imperial Truth. Then known as the Imperial Heralds, the 17th Legion's transformation into the Wordbearers with the integration of the Aurelian saw to vast changes in organization and structure, not least among them being the Herald Order. Skull-helmed warriors wielding immense Crozius Arcanums, these exemplars of moral authority, with time, enshrine themselves as the officer corps of the Legion. Their solemn purges of entire cities ending with the scattering of the ashes of the dead upon the bowed heads of their kin. Silencing blasphemy with both word and sword alike, the Heralds of Lorgar cast ancient texts of untold civilizations to the flame, overseeing the construction of holy monuments, cathedrals, and places of worship devoted to the Emperor on newly conquered worlds. Writing works proclaiming the divine standing of the Master of Mankind as their true deity, their sermons to the masses for a time gave succor to the burgeoning Imperium, until the object of their veneration intervened, making an example of the Wordbearers Legion on the world of Kerr, alongside his custodian guard, the Ultramarines, their Primarch Rabute Guilliman, and his advisor, Malcador the Sigillite. The Emperor ordered the destruction of their most gaudy act of heresy. Lorgar's act of sycophantic idolatry, Monarchia, burned, the Ultramarines tearing down its marble edifice after evacuating the civilian populace. Humbled by the God Emperor of Mankind, the shame of the 17th Legion calloused into resentment, their heralds following their Primarch into damnation as they sought new patrons willing to accept their worship. Repainting their armor black in remembrance of Monarchia, the Heralds of Lorgar would in time transform into the hated Dark Apostles of Chaos, their legacy of the primogenitors of the Chaplain Order redacted from Imperial records. Yet as the Great Crusade wore on, a new use for these prototypical chaplains within all the Legiones Astartes would present itself during the conclave to resolve the growing tensions caused by the Librarian Order. Psychers of the Space Marines, as of then dabbling too deep into the mysteries of the warp, had incurred great tragedy, unearthing the dark secrets of the realm of chaos. A danger concealed by the Emperor for centuries, which if revealed, could imperil the fate of the Imperium. Convening the Council of Nicaea, organized to put on trial the most prominent exponents of psychopotential, though the Thousand Sons, Blood Angels, and White Scar's legions gave a sterling defense of its uses, the Emperor decreed psychers too dangerous to remain within military branches of the Great Crusade. With exception to particular creeds, such as the Navigator houses, who without their abilities to the Imperium's war machine would grind it to a halt, all sanctioned psychers within the military returned to the fold as battle line warriors. Vaunted librarians disconnecting their psychic hoods as they undertook new roles within their respective legions. In order to ensure the Emperor's decree absolute, the widespread adoption of a new organization would be essential. Lorgar Aurelian offering detachments of his heralds to each legion in order to counsel the crestfallen librarians and tutor them in reintegrating into the ranks of their battle brothers. Henceforth, the Chaplain Order began to burgeon. With the Librarius banished, some legions refused to accept these grim preachers into the fold, most notably Magnus the Red, who had championed the cause of Psykers and would not allow such enforcers within the midst of his much diminished sons. Sanguinius, Primarch of the Blood Angels, also refused Lorgar's men, his own order known as Wardens, already tending to his legion's mental instability, as they secretly monitored their kin for signs of the Red First. Some legions, such as the Dark Angels, Emperor's Children, World Eaters and Death Guard, openly adopted such new warriors readily, whilst others combined their role with bespoke creeds of their native cultures. While the Iron Hands integrated chaplains with their Tech Marine brethren to create so-called Iron Fathers, the Salamanders combined their Promethean creed with the demands of the Emperor, as their Voices of Fire emphasized the teachings of Nocturne. Wolf priests of Fenris, drawn from their mystic, speakers of the dead cult of their ferocious homeworld. These combinations of chaplain and apothecary oversaw the sanctity of their brethren from the beginning of their transformation as Space Marines until their deaths. The Order of Observance, also known as the Chaplain Edict, now in full effect. Little would any present realize the great need for such pastors in the grim future which would follow, all save perhaps for the Rainmaker. Secretly delighting in the irony of his father's trust placed in him to protect the Imperium from the dangers of chaos. Now already a pawn of the ruinous powers, Lorgar poured poison within the heart of each of the legions to which he held influence. Having established warrior lodges which on the surface provided egalitarian brotherhood and trust, in truth, such vectors for the spread of chaos would begin to erode the judgment of the Space Marines, until outright heresy erupted from within their midst. The War of the Horus Heresy brought the Imperium to its knees, yet as the Great Scouring began to hunt down the traitorous elements of the Legiones Astartes, radical changes to their organization would be enacted. Rabute Guilliman, Lord of Ultramar, and the inheritor of a broken empire, looked upon what had wrought its destruction. The gods of chaos manipulating vast armies of Astartes as willing pawns to their malevolent majesty. Dividing what remained of the Loyalist legions into smaller chapters, the formation of the Adeptus Astartes would prevent future misuse of their might by a singular despot's will. The Librarium re-established to counter the now visible threat of chaos. Now more than ever, the Chaplain Order would be needed to ground their efforts to serve the Imperium's needs. Astartes proven in battle, often recognized with plaudit badges of merit and devotion, noted by diagonal stripes on their right pauldrons, deemed worthy of training within the chaplaincy. Each aspirant of this holy calling is regarded as a novice or initiate chaplain, painting their helmets, right pauldron and arm black to signify their fledgling status. Their former symbols of prestige won in battle are surrendered as part of their pledge to serve the black of eternal devotion. Assisting their mentor in their holy duties when not in combat, their study of liturgies personally overseen by their grim teachers shall in time earn them the right to visit the chapter's solitarium. Secluded from their kinsmen as they fast and meditate for weeks on end, those proven righteous in their piety shall accept their symbols of office within a ceremony conducted by their assigned company. Reforms made with the introduction of Primaris Space Marines, establishing a new rank of the chaplaincy to be created, the Jusidiers. These warriors swear a vow of silence until they are proven to be worthy chaplains. Armed with executioner relic blades and arcane devices known as Temper Mortis, these time-dilating hourglasses impede enemy movements, allowing for their swift kills made in battle as proof of their worthiness. Adopting the name of their predecessor as a right of inheritance, chaplains slain in battle forfeit their skull helm and shoulder pauldrons to their successor. Wearing their forebears' armor as they assume full authority as the new spiritual leader of their company. If taken during the midst of battle, only when the dead have been interred and gene seed retrieved is a new chaplain formally promoted. Each company requiring a chaplain to attend to their needs. Though their seniority does not exceed that of a company captain, such warriors are nonetheless held in high regard by their peers. Guardians of their kinsmen's souls from the clutches of the ruinous powers, the chaplains of the Dark Imperium now act as leaders amongst their chapter, even if not among their superiors' overtly clear command structure. While not all worship the Emperor as a godlike being, all are fervent in their preachings of his greatness, their watchful eyes set within the grim visage of their skull helms, promising reprisal to any Astartes who would betray their duty to his glory. Not unlike commissars in their duties to purge heretics within their midst, unlike the jackboots of the Officio Prefectus, The chaplains often combine their spiritual duties with that of mentoring the most junior Astartes of their chapter, reminding their kin of their holy duty to purge the wicked from the galaxy, whether in the name of the Emperor, their Primarch, or heroes of bygone ages. These custodians of their chapter's history draw from gloried past battles to instill pride within the hearts of their peers. Memorizing the litanies and rites stored within their chapter's librarius, whether devoted to a singular company or the creed entire, these fonts of knowledge are practical in the extreme when applying such wisdom. Monitoring the discipline and readiness of neophytes as their indoctrination progresses. Typically, chaplains are charged with recruiting new aspirants into the fold, though exceptions to this standard do exist within divergent chapters. Instilling the values and cultures of their forebears into the most green recruits, chaplains weed out the weak spiritually, whilst the trials they undertake see to those too frail of body. Dutiful, zealous, and uncompromising in their methods used, for every legendary warrior of the Adeptus Astartes, whether a captain, champion, or chapter master in standing, there is always a resolute chaplain who has paved their path to glory. Burdened with great responsibility to shepherd the Emperor's angels through the perils of the void, each chaplain finds solace within the central shrine of their chapter's fortress monastery, the Reclusiam. The most sacred place of any chapter's domains, the untold relics housed within such a cathedral, whether priceless ceramite panoplies, legendary blades, or thrice-blessed bolters, have ensured the purge of thousands of heretics, xenos, and demons alike. Displaying banners and icons pilfered from the dead hands of unworthy opponents who foolishly challenged their chapter's strength, these tokens of the defeat of the Emperor's most deadly foes are a source of great pride for those who behold their tarnished majesty. Speaking catechisms of hate and repugnance within the acoustically rich confines of the Reclusiam, the senior chaplain, known as a Reclusiarch, trains promising chaplains to new heights of devotion. The most highly ranked chaplain, known as the Master of Sanctity, responsible for the deployment of his juniors to each battle and reserve company. Though the role of Reclusiarch and Master of Sanctity is often combined, some chapters keep such roles separate. Tending to the needs of each company, both within and without combat, every Codex-compliant chapter company maintains a chapel wherein their respective chaplain conducts rites and rituals to bolster their men. Adherents of the Imperial cult, even if only tenuously, whether an integral part of the chapter's faith or a foundation of more entrenched Space Marine traditions, all regardless of their religiosity, give praise to his name, even if it should not be considered worship. Friction not uncommon between the Adeptus Astartes and officials of the Ecclesiarchy. While the Space Marines claim to be the descendants of the Emperor's will made manifest from his Great Crusade, they are regardless perceived as feudalistic warmongers by the Adeptus Ministorum. Mutually disdainful of the clerics of the Ecclesiarchy, the chaplains regard such stock of mortals as mere inheritors of the Emperor's prestige. Their establishment after his interment upon the Golden Throne, a sore point of contention within this pious establishment. Those who know the lineage of their bloodline often holding their Primarchs in equal regard to that of the Master of Mankind. Every chapter honors the legacy of the sons of the Emperor, often entombing war gear tied to their service, in pride of place of their Reclusiam. With the passing of millennia, the chapters of the Adeptus Astartes have adopted myriad quirks as a result of their labors, the cultures and responsibilities of each changing the nature of not only their battle lines, but also spiritual needs. The chaplains of the Dark Angels, obsessed with the location, capture, and torture of the fallen angels of their past legion, their interrogator chaplains have become widespread within all branches of their successors, known as the Unforgiven. Ordered by their master interrogator to venture forth to bring judgment to the fallen, these members of the Dark Angels' inner circle conceal the secret of their shame from their junior kinsmen and the events which caused the destruction of their Primarch's homeworld, Caliban. Clandestinely purging those unworthy to become an interrogator chaplain in order to prevent dangerous knowledge from escaping their lips. Every interrogator chaplain carries a reductor surgical device to claim gene seed from Chaos Space Marines in the hopes of crossing another name from the roster of Caliban. Adding a single black pearl to their Rosarius chain, with each fallen angel brought to justice, it is said that Master Interrogator Chaplain Malokia, after 300 years of service, accrued the most recorded at a count of 10. Wolf Priests of Fenris, mastering biomechanics and chirurgy due to their combined role as apothecaries and chaplains. Their monitoring of the flaw of the Canis Helix, the curse of the Wolfen, also requires the administering of last rites over those deemed too far gone to serve. Typically, the visage of a Wolf Priest is the first a Space Marine aspirant should ever see. Should they succeed their trials to become a member of the Rout, it shall also be the last, as they or another shall prepare to salvage their gene seed once their final act of war is concluded. Blood Angels chaplains devoted to the Sanguinary Brotherhood, which inducts members from all of their successors. Both chaplains and apothecaries convene to discuss escalations of signs of both the Red First and Black Rage within their ranks. Galvanizing their shared legacy to the Great Angel, Sanguinius, the Sanguinary Brotherhood often organize joint cooperations to ensure that should one chapter contingent succumb to either gene flaw, their ally shall make efforts to intervene. The Iron Fathers of the 10th, deriving their namesake from the engineer mystics of the Dark Age of technology, known as Frater Ferrum. Their forebears originally maintained the machines of the clans of Medusa, and as such, gained great prominence for their expertise. Likewise, the chaplain tech marines of the Iron 10th tend to the spiritual needs of not just their men, but also the machine spirits of their equipment. Their ascension decided by merit alone, as captains, librarians, apothecaries, and even veteran sergeants can be promoted to such a prestigious rank. Recipients of such an honor, typically of the tech marine variety, due to their innate understanding of technology. Every clan company requires the oversight of an Iron Father as a member of the Council of Iron. Perceived as heretical by members of the ecclesiarchy, the Adepts of Mars stand in as the exemplars of the Creed of the Omnissiah, and as such invite all Iron Fathers to receive tutoring of sacred tech disciplines on the Forge World of Mars. The chapter led not by a chapter master, but an appointed war leader chosen by the Iron Council, by virtue of an Iron Father's responsibilities to train neophytes, oversee surgical procedures of their men, and maintain the spiritual health of their kin. These souls are exceptional in their expertise, and thus qualified to lead the chapter, even if only for a single campaign, before being replaced. Variations of the disposition of chaplains within bespoke chapters denoted with peculiar variations of their titles, while both the Imperial Fist successors of the Executioners and Celestial Lions name their chaplains as Death Speakers. Others within chapters such as the Tomekeepers are known as Orators, due to their rousing speeches which aid their kin, which with aid from their company ancient and librarian, are channeled directly into the minds of their kin. All members of the Emperor's Spear Specialists, whether librarians, tech marines, apothecaries or chaplains, known as Druids. Other chapters, such as the Star Phantoms, regard their spiritual leaders as Mortuary Chaplains, who proclaim the tenets of their mortuary cult. The Mortifactors chapter, drawing their chaplains from the shamans and chieftains of their pagan homeworld of Posel. Their praise given to the Emperor as their ultimate warrior is emphasized by the grim adornments of skulls claimed through their acts of cannibalism. Those seconded to the Chamber Militant of the Ordo Xenos, the Death Watch, uniquely tasked with tending to the spiritual needs of battle brothers not of their own kind. The kinship of each chaplain within each fortress monastery is strong by necessity. Setting aside differences in culture in order to confront the most terrible alien threats, which seek to devour and dispose of their charges, Death Watch chaplains endure evils faced within the bleakest corners of space. Uncompromising zealousness, unsuited to the tasks of the Death Watch. Only those rare souls with a broad enough approach to sanctity, often in their apprenticeship as a chaplain, are provided to the Ordo Xenos. Dedicating their studies to the extensive legacies of each loyal Primarch of the Imperium and their successor chapters, Death Watch chaplains must become experts of untold chapter lore in order to harness seconded exemplars of such values to the task at hand. Knowing the exact litanies to restore waning Kill Team members back to the path of righteousness, whether a proud son of Dawn, cunning scion of the Raven Lord, or misunderstood free spirit of Jagoris, a Death Watch chaplain must focus their purpose. Never capable of perceiving their chapter of origin with the clarity they once experienced, returned Death Watch chaplains rarely adopt high-ranking positions, and as such, often remain as permanent members of the Long Watch. The Chaplains of the Space Marines, the manifestation of wrath incarnate. Though their armaments may appear underwhelming to the untrained eye, their faith in the Emperor is a weapon never to be underestimated. Bellowing mantras and hymnals as they charge headfirst into the fray, their numerous catechisms inspire bravery in the hearts of Astartes and mortals alike. While the litany of faith prepares all for impending danger. The Catechism of Fire calls onto a chaplain's allies to unleash devastation in volleys of close-range firepower. The Exhortation of Rage, demanding all to charge into melee range of their opponents in order to tear them limb from limb. The Mantra of Strength further bolsters effectiveness in close quarters, as Astartes are reminded of the martial prowess of their Primarchs. The Recitation of Focus, steadying men's hands to allow their ranged weapons to strike true. When all else fails, the Canticle of Hate unrestrains a chaplain's battle lines to commit any and all savage destructive force upon enemy positions. Always venturing to where the fighting is thickest, the Armor of Faith, which enshrouds the chaplains and their men, allows for not only the smiting of his enemies, but defensive positions to cover funereal rites and acts of mercy to injured courageous souls. Rejoicing in their acts of slaughter with glee, typical of the Angels of Death. Though none can see the face of these warriors behind their death masks, it is obvious by the timbre of their proclamations that the sport of war made in the Emperor's name is indeed a delight to such zealots. Lionizing acts of devotion, bravery, and sacrifice, as men both transhuman and mortal alike incur wounds around them. To a chaplain, there is no act of supplication greater than to bleed and, if necessary, die in the name of the Master of Mankind. The most elite force of the chaplains, the Reclusiam Command Squad, deployed only in the time of the chapter's greatest need. The warriors of each company command squad are led by a chaplain, in deference of their usual commander. An inspirational fulcrum of battle when beheld, the veterans of the command squad adopt the moniker of Reclusiaries when in service to their chaplain, and shield him from the most grievous wounds. Driving the Reclusiam Command Squad to heights of slaughter never before experienced. It is a nigh overwhelming sensation for veterans who have never fought within the structure of such a command squad before. Their savagery honed to the point of a beautiful and passionate act of carnage. Their fury in battle is heightened beyond the point of fatigue, as their flurries of attacks sunder all in their wake. The Reclusiam Command Squad, consisting of an apothecary, standard bearer, company champion, and razorback support vehicle. It is up to the discretion of the chaplain in command if additional stalwart battle brothers are required to fight by their side. Clutching their Rosarius badge of office as they bellow devotional hymns to the Emperor's glory, whether hanging from a necklace chain, brooch, amulet, or gorget fitting, this symbol of fellowship with the ecclesiarchy, often received from high-ranking cardinals, houses within its construction a potent conversion field. Deflecting small arms fire as the chaplain charges into the fray, their black ceramite, often of the Mark 6, 7, or 8 variety for firstborn Marines, often draws in enemies due to its more stylized design, especially in the case of the new Mark 10 Primaris design. Adorning their armor with skulls and edifices which evoke the immortal Emperor, every trinket is a reminder of all warriors' impermanence when contrasted with the rule of the Master of Mankind. The macabre skull helms, synonymous with the chaplains of the Angels of Death, though some chapters diverge in the constitution of whether they are merely painted on ceramite or flesh-stripped trophies incorporated into their designs, they shall strike fear into the wicked regardless of their providence. Wielding their staff of office, the Crozius Arcanum, in battle, this ornate scepter, used for both ceremonial duties and caving in the skulls of heretics, often is formed into the shape of the Imperial Aquila or a venerated icon of their gloried chapter. Producing an energy field from its edge, every blow incurred from such a weapon is devastating when wielded by a Space Marine. A chaplain's already prodigious strength, amplified to the point of shattering the bones of demons and necrodermic abominations. Armored in both power armor and Terminator plate, depending on their rank and the circumstance of their deployment, whether armed with a plasma pistol in their lighter armor or a stormbolter in their latter heavy plate, all that matters is that their purges are achieved. Occasionally seen vaulting into battle, riding assault bikes, land raiders, or rhino tanks, the sight of a pitch-black vehicle in the heraldry of the chaplaincy is an ill omen for the enemies of the Imperium to observe. For the Emperor is immortal, and thus so too is his will. For those who wish to defy him shall be judged by the ministers of his wrath. The watchful glare of these grim seraphs, beneath cowls of black, never faltering in their observance of heresy and corruption. At battle's end, speak the liturgy in a clear voice. Respect the bravery of the living. Give the rite of passage to the fallen. Honor the battle gear of the dead. To do all this with reverence, even when exhausted by battle and weary from the field, is the duty of a chaplain. It is his burden and satisfaction. This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. Faith is a powerful tool utilized by mankind since time immemorial. Its ability to bring change to the world, driven by shared ideals and virtues. Yet considering its immense power, religiosity and superstition remain forever intertwined with delusion and manipulation due to their lack of foundations grounded in the material. Be wary of those who offer promises with no recompense, for often such seeming acts of altruism occur repayment through moral debt. A gift given gladly, knowing its fruits to be bitter. Faith alone is no foundation for moral judgment, for without perspective, experience, or skepticism, you shall line the pockets of false prophets and frauds aplenty. For many have been the assurances of swindlers who hold not the beliefs to which they espouse and glean profit.